think the oldest civilization on Earth has been? Mesopotamia? China maybe? While those are great guesses, there's actually new research published in the journal Nature that shows Aboriginal Australians settled in Australia 25 to 40,000 years ago, making it the oldest known civilization. If you can't already tell, I'm going to be expanding your knowledge on Aboriginal Australian culture. And while Australia can seem so foreign to America purely based on location, it's still so important to learn about this culture and combat ethnocentric tendencies. I actually lived in Australia for all of 2019 and not only immersed myself in the European Australian culture, but I was fascinated with the Aboriginal Australian culture. And one of the most foundational aspects of this culture I found was this concept of Dreamtime. And in this speech, I'm going to explain what exactly Dreamtime is, how it's portrayed in art, and I'm going to show you a landform that they believe was created during Dreamtime. First and foremost, what is Dreamtime exactly? Outlandish Aboriginal Art Gallery explains Dreamtime to be this concept of a creation story. They believe that the ancestral spirits came out of the Earth's crust and created everything that you see: trees, land, rocks, even humans and animals. They also believe it to be a series of stories of how things are and why things are the way that they are. This is a children's story as a derivative of a Dreamtime story about how a koala got its tail, which is pretty cute. Another aspect of Dreamtime is that it is continuous. It was, it is, and it will always be. So I like to think of it kind of like another time dimension. So we have our dimension that was created in Dreamtime dimension. So that one is vast and never ending, and we are just a part of that Dreamtime. We are a separate entity from Dreamtime. So now that we know what Dreamtime is, let's see how it's portrayed in art. Let's visualize it. But before we get into that, I'd like to kind of touch on the bleak history of Aboriginal Australia, because it is important to learn about where they came from to appreciate their art a little bit more. As we know, in 1788, the Europeans came to Australia, and much like they did with the Native Americans of North America, they ravaged their nations, which is what they call tribes. They separated children from their families to assimilate them into white culture, and basically tried to eradicate their entire culture. So if you don't know much about that side of Australian history, I would definitely suggest looking into it and giving it some time, because it is a very important part of world history. But now let's refocus a little bit about how they regained their voice through art. In an article by Mitchell Rolls called "The Painting the Dreaming White," he mentions an artist named Robert Hughes, who basically paved the way for appreciation of Aboriginals in art. And he is quoted by saying, "It is meaningless to speak of an Australian school of painters before 1885. Meaning that before 1885, Australian artists were mimicking European artists. And Hughes wanted to find something that made Australian art unique. So he looked to the Aboriginals. Rolls also mentions a guy named Ansley Roberts, who dedicated his life and his work to the more abstract side of Aboriginal art, which was Dreamtime. And in 1963, he came out with this gallery titled Dreamtime, as you can see. And its main goal was just to help non-Indigenous people visualize this concept of Dreamtime. And as an effect, it sparked this massive movement and appreciation for Aboriginal art. So let's now broaden our focus a little bit and come to an example of a very well-known piece of Aboriginal art, the Aboriginal flag. AboriginalArt.com explains that it was Harold Thomas who designed this flag in 1973, and he first flew it on National Aborigines Day, but it wasn't until 1994 that it was adopted as a flag of Australia. AboriginalArt.com also defines the colors in the flag, the black being for the Aboriginal people, the red for the land and their connection to the land, and the yellow orb is for the sun and the ancestral givers of life. So this, as you can see, is just a visual representation of what Dreamtime is and how they are all connected as one. So now that we know what Dreamtime is and how it's visualized through art, let's look at a landmark that they believe was created during Dreamtime, which is Uluru. So, as you can see, Uluru is this massive red sandstone located in the center of Australia in the Anangu Nation. And the Anangu people believe that they were hand-chosen by the ancestral spirits to protect this rock. And they even believe that just by touching the rock, they can communicate with the spirits in Dreamtime and can receive blessings from them. This is why there are so many paintings all around the rock and all around the sides of the rock of creation stories and of Dreamtime stories. It's quite beautiful. However, Uluru is a massive tourist destination, and many non-Indigenous people who don't understand the history of the rock, they try to climb it, which is extremely disrespectful to the Anangu and all Aboriginal people. And it wasn't until 2019, last year, that climbing the rock was actually banned. So as you can see, Dreamtime affects every aspect of their daily life, their religion, and it's the most foundational piece of information that you need to know before you dive into their culture. So now that you know what Dreamtime is, how it's visualized in art, and one of their landforms that they believe was created during Dreamtime, you can arm yourself with this knowledge and this humility to combat ethnocentrism and really broaden your perspective on the world. It's not hard to learn about other cultures and to appreciate them for their uniqueness. It's just really putting one foot in front of the other. So it's up to you to take that step into the future and into growth.